Justin, you're muted.
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association presents Reasonable Doubt. I am Justin Harris. I'll be with you this evening. JV could not be here, so fortunately you got second chair. But we have a great show tonight. We've got a wonderful attorney, Mr. Thomas Overhouse, with us. Thomas, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on. So I know we've got a big thing to jump into. You got a great story that we want to talk to the viewers about that you and your trial partner, Miss Ebbs, went through. But first, can you tell us a little bit about you? How long you've been practicing law? A little bit about your career, where you're from?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Houston. I lived there for about 35 years. Went to law school at South Texas. Graduated in 2016. My first job actually was at the Galveston County District Attorney's Office. I was a felony prosecutor, and then Mark Diaz offered me a job, and now I'm one of his associates.
Okay, cool. How long you been doing defense work?
Well, going on 4 years, so probably like 3.5 now. I started with him in June 2020.
Yeah, and you're liking it, 'cause you're sticking with it, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, it's so much better.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
What's that like? I mean, I've always wondered this, and you don't have to say, but I've always been on the defense side, but I see attorneys who one day they're just not there, and then the next day they're there with like another defense attorney. And I'm always wondering, like, how'd that conversation go? Like, did he know you were maybe looking, or did you have no idea and he caught you off guard? How's that kind of thing work? If you want to say what happened.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was kind of a culmination of a couple different things. I'd always wanted to do criminal defense. That's what I wanted to do. And when I was at South Texas, I interned with Adam Brown. And it's kind of a funny story. While I was with him, I got an offer. One of my law professors said, "Hey, Galveston DA's office is looking for interns," and talked to him about it. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I like what I'm doing right here. Plus, you're paying me. And so he said, "Look, this is how I got my start. I started at the DA's office. You should really do it." And I waffled on it. And he said, "Okay, well, I'm not going to give you a choice. You're fired." So, so he fired me.
So then you went and got unemployment, and then no.
Yeah, so he fired me with the direct intention for me to go take this internship, and I did. I interned for my 3L year, and they offered me a job once I passed the bar, and I was there for about like a couple months shy of 4 years.
Okay. All right. So you are about halfway with both.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been with Mark since, and Jessica Ebbs is also an associate over there, or
she is.
Counsel?
She also,
associate.
yeah, she also started at the DA's office as well.
Yeah. So we're going to jump into this story, and for those who are on there, we're going to talk about the story that actually I noticed is the last story that HCCLA posted on Facebook about a prosecutor in Galveston County who got fired. Let's see. So who are we talking about here?
It was an individual. His name is Clayton Harrell.
There we go. Clayton. I want to see it now.
Yeah, he got hired right before, if I remember correctly, or right in the middle of the pandemic. So everything was still shut down, work from home, and I never really got to know him personally when I was still at the DA's office because we were working from home. But what I knew about him is that he came from Comal County.
Okay, kind of Central Texas.
Yeah.
So this is the case. You and Jessica had the case of State of Texas versus Rondell Smith. Rondell, is that how you pronounced it?
Yep. Yeah.
Or how he still pronounces it, thanks to you. So, So
he was
catch us up to speed. Tell us what the state says Mr. Smith did.
so the basically it was a drive-by shooting. There was two individuals who were walking on the side of the street, and it was alleged that there was two cars involved filled with multiple individuals, and they drove by. Shots were fired. Both individuals were shot. One of them passed away. The other one was shot in the butt.
Okay.
So
Um, was this like supposedly a random thing, or is this like a targeted thing? Do they know? Do they have a theory on that?
they do, but the police agency just it was a very, very poorly done investigation, and so there's a
Okay.
lot of questions that I
Talk
think
about
that
that.
we still don't even know.
Okay.
There's multiple individuals in the car. Rondell Smith was one of the ones alleged to be in there, and these individuals get shot. They respond. They start doing an investigation, and they essentially zeroed in on our client. And the
Did
reason
they
that
were
we
they
went,
looking for? I'm sorry, I'm going to catch up. Were
no,
they
go ahead.
looking for like multiple shooters? There's multiple cars, you said, with multiple people in each car, or one
Yes,
car
sir.
with multiple people?
No, it was, well, there was two cars.
Okay. Thomas, you there? Did I freeze up?
Potentially been involved in the act of the actual shooting. But I think it's the classic story. They'd had run-ins with our clients before, with our client, and they zeroed in on him and didn't really chase down any other leads.
Okay. Just the usual suspects kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. You know,
Was this in like city of Galveston? Where what part of Galveston
this
County
was
was it?
this is in the Lamarck. You know, so
Okay.
here in Galveston County, there's kind of a transition line where Lamarck and Texas City kind of they both respond to the same thing sometimes. So um, the primary agency was Texas City. They were involved in this as the investigating agency.
They were the lead investigators on it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they zero in on Mr. Smith, on Rondell Smith. And how long after the shooting did they make an arrest? If you remember, were y'all on it right off the bat? How did that kind of all get going? It's a good story. I heard some of it before. I'll tell
Yeah.
people it's a great story. I'm not trying to take wind out of Thomas's sails. I'm just trying to make
No.
sure that we get all the little bits in that we kind of went through earlier and some of the questions I had when we were going through it.
So to be honest, I can't remember exactly what the time frame was, but they the whole crux of this whole story is a series of little tidbits of information that are coming into the PD during their investigation, and they follow up on some leads. Rondell Smith gets implicated, and they zero in, and they don't do very much else after that. The other individual who was alleged and who we believe was the shooter, they received some information about this in person, and they didn't really follow up. What basically we got from their investigation was that they heard some information that this person was the shooter, and I'm not saying his name just because he was never charged, and I don't want to do something like that, but
Sure.
they received several different pieces of information that implicated him as the person responsible. And to kind of summarize what they did, they called him on the telephone. They said, "Hey, were you involved in this?" He said, "No, I didn't have anything to do with that." And they said, "Okay, thanks." You know, I mean,
Wait,
it was
wait, wait,
just
wait. I asked the question earlier of like, what's it like when Mark, like, squirreled you away from the Galveston County DA's office? I want to know what that kind of phone call is like. Hey, is this Mr. Jones? Oh, hey, Mr. Jones. I just wanted to check. Like, did you shoot that guy? Like, that's the police work
yeah,
they did.
yeah, pretty much. And
Wow.
that was basically our whole theory and strategy in our defense of this case. There was no real forensic evidence or anything like that that we believe directly implicated our client. And the investigation was that classic, we know this person from some previous history. This must be the guy. And they zeroed in, got tunnel vision, and that's all they did.
So it's like the classic square peg, round hole, get big hammer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I've seen that
Yeah,
before. I've seen that before. So I guess the lesson is like you get what you pay for if you're a Lamarck citizen and Texas City Police Department investigates a murder in your jurisdiction.
pretty
So
much.
wow. Okay, so they zero in on your guy, and then you and Jessica get the case. Take it from there. What happens next? I've never been a
So actually,
prosecutor. I'm not good with direct examinations, and
no,
I'm trying not to do a
no,
cross.
it's all right. It's all right. So Mark was actually appointed to this case, but he got called for trial in a separate court, and it was a Spanish speaking only client. So he had to try that case.
Okay.
And that was called during the exact same trial period. So the way that we kind of operate, we all work together. We all know mostly the ins and outs of all of our cases. And so we went to answer for
That's
the
good. That's wow. That's good for your clients that all the lawyers are on top of things. So somebody pops up for trial, gets sick, and then an associate goes in. They're like,
yep,
no, no, no. You may not have seen me a lot, but I know your stuff. That's good.
yeah.
That's a great thing for your clients.
And so we get called number one. And we express to the judge, look, Mark's the appointed attorney. He's currently picking a jury right now as we speak. And talked to Rondell. We got his permission on the record. He said, I'm confident. I want to go with these guys. And so we teed off. We started jury selection.
Nice. What court was it in?
The 4th/5th
Okay.
is Judge Jared Robinson.
Okay. Good. And then y'all, so it's you and Jessica, and then Clayton or Clay Harrell is lead for the state.
Yeah, he was the lead for the state. There was another prosecutor. His name was Quentin McConico. He, typical state kind of trial, he was just there to take notes. I mean, he had pretty much no involvement whatsoever.
Okay. So I know I'm trying not to go too far with this. I don't want to spill the beans on what
No,
you
you're
do,
good.
but you're going to trial because you said there were two people shot. One was killed and one was just aggravatedly assaulted, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what are y'all going to trial on? Both? Are they combined? Is it one? Did they
No,
charge him with
so
the ag assault or just the murder?
they did. They did.
Okay, so he had two charges out of this excellent Texas City Police Department investigation. And y'all are trying which one?
We're actually trying the murder.
The murder. Okay.
That was the court's selection. And so I think that, well, procedurally, this case had been reset so many different times. And the reason was because everybody that the state had as potential witnesses were entirely uncooperative. They would, the tidbits of information that we got while during the pendency of the trial was they were saying unusual things like, I don't know, I wasn't there, when it was very clearly established that these individuals were in the car when it happened. They were never alleged as somebody responsible for the actual act itself, but undisputed that they were there, but they would play dumb, just typical.
Okay.
For whatever the reasons may be, it's purely speculation, but I don't want to be involved in the prosecution. Perhaps they were concerned with what may happen, who knows, but obstruction the
On
entire
this
way.
show we say snitches get stitches. That's
Yep.
usually the terminology we use on the show. But
That's exactly
some
what it was.
people it's end up in ditches. It's our word that rhymes with witches, But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
So we had been reset because they couldn't secure. I mean, they even had difficulty getting subpoenas served on these individuals. And
what does that mean? You sound like a prosecutor. They had difficulty getting subpoenas served on these individuals. What were they doing?
So the way that the Galveston County DA's office works is you've got prosecutors involved in a case, and then each court is assigned a specific investigator. And it's not like the investigators in other counties. I mean, they're underutilized. They're basically just process servers. And so,
Okay.
for the most part, they use these individuals to just serve their subpoenas, find the witnesses if they can't reach them by phone, things like of that nature. So they'd been having those kinds of difficulties. They couldn't find them, or they would locate them and they would say, "Yeah, you can come find me here," and then they would show up with a subpoena and then they wouldn't be
They
there.
wouldn't be there.
Yeah, just those kind of
Wow.
things.
So this is leading up to trial, right? Like you're issuing subpoenas when you have a
Mhm.
trial. So this is kind of like another term that we use on here, like a utter zoo. This, I
Oh
mean,
yeah, there's total chaos.
and you're finding out about this because what? Like I'm okay. Prosecutors going up to the judge saying, "Judge, we need some more time because we're having trouble
Mhm.
with the witnesses." And the judge is like, "What do you mean you're having trouble with the witnesses?" And the prosecutor's telling the court and you these stories, right?
Exactly. We're learning about these kind of things and these issues at pretrial.
Okay. Yeah, and we see that kind of stuff happen in court, and we're all we we'll kind of like roll our eyes or sometimes
Mhm.
get a chuckle from like sort of the absurdity of things that can actually slow down the system, and for better or for worse, depending on how you're looking at it. But like, yeah, I see that kind of stuff all the time. Like this, and we all in our side, in our business, we just kind of roll with it and get a chuckle out of it sometimes. So the zoo is like in full swing, trials coming. So what goes on?
So finally, I think the court has basically just had enough. They're like, enough. We've given you all some time. You need to figure out a way to resolve this, or we need to go to trial. And so I believe that they'd asked for some more time. They announced not ready. The court said, "You've had too many. Figure it out." And then, at least from my perspective and what we saw, the state really put the full court press on all the other individuals. I mean,
Okay.
I want to say that I remember they went as far as to camp outside of the children's schools waiting for pickup in order to serve these subpoenas.
To witnesses
Um,
to a murder.
correct.
Wow. Okay.
There's some comical issues with regards to how some of the subpoenas were served, but
Yeah.
those, yeah. the Regardless, they got them under a subpoena and they were ordered to come the several days before trial. They showed
Okay.
up in response to those subpoenas. Judge swore them in, said, "You're to return on this trial date." The
Super
date
happy to
that
do so, weren't they?
No, and the state was perfectly aware of this too, because Clayton had writs of attachment in hand for when they didn't show up even to the pretrial setting.
Wow.
Fully expecting that he's going to have to go and request that law enforcement go out and apprehend them and bring them and force them. So,
And that's what a writ of attachment is. When there's a witness to a case, and there's under subpoena, and then they ignore the subpoena, writ of attachment allows the judge to send a law enforcement out to get them and bring them back in, right?
yep, exactly.
Okay.
And so, that's significant because that shows, one, the state's willing to go to the length of taking somebody into custody to secure their appearance to testify. And
Which doesn't make for a very happy witness for your case, right? And you're calling them and you're putting them in handcuffs and dragging them into court, forcing them to do something they don't want to do. Doesn't make
yeah,
for a good case. It would make a lot of prosecutors kind of hesitant, right?
it would, because the stakes are pretty high. I mean, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about taking somebody into custody in
Right.
order to force their testimony. And as I already kind of explained, like these were individuals that had children. And if they get taken into custody, of course, there's the issues about the length that they're allowed to be held in custody. But nonetheless, somebody's going to be arrested, taken into
Yeah.
custody, forcibly brought in front of a court. And that's where we were at. Luckily for them, or fortunately for them, they appeared, they got sworn in, and then
Good.
weekend passes and we get to the first day of the trial period, we're called, and prosecutor had the writs of attachment then and there, just ready to let's go get these people.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm kind of emphasizing that is, well, that'll become relevant a little bit later, but
Right.
Excuse me. Anyway, they were going full bore. So we get called. All those pretrial matters get resolved. Everything's okay, going just like normal. And we start jury selection. State conducts their voir dire. And some point, either between the break after the state's voir dire or the conclusion of our voir dire, Clayton comes up to it and goes, or he comes up to both me and Jessica and he says, "Hey, there's something I've been meaning to tell you guys. We talked to the other individual, the other complaining witness in the aggravated assault, and he says he was never shot." And he kind of chuckles, and we kind of did too, honestly.
He was never shot in the butt.
Right. Yeah,
in the buttocks.
And for us, we kind of laughed at it too, because this was totally on par and in line with the way that everybody else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we didn't think too much of it. Thank you for the disclosure. Look forward to the written one, because he promised us a written one before trial was over. So trial's proceeding, state's case, it's going kind of just like.
And I will say that that's the second or maybe third time I've heard you relay that story. You say it exactly the same way each time. So I'm imagining that that's because the way Clayton said it to you is exactly the way that you're relaying it. So, but I noticed that he said, "I've been meaning to tell you guys."
Yeah.
And that was a part that you said every time you told me that story. You said that he said, "I've been meaning to tell you guys." So he'd known that, I guess, for some time through all these writs of attachment and everything else. He knew that the other dude who got shot. I mentioned this earlier before the show, right? Like, how many murder cases do you get where you have a living witness, like a living person who got shot, and you get to try the murder? You know, like that's a great witness, even if they're going to come in and say something kind of silly, like, "I never got shot."
No, exactly. So, when I was coming up through the ranks in the DA's office, one, we were always taught what we would say, kiss the ugly baby. You embrace the facts, you embrace the bad facts, you get it out first so that you don't have a defense attorney come up and say, they didn't do this, they didn't show you this, and it's because they're hiding something.
Yep.
But even in addition to that, he could have used it strategically for his own advantage. Your guy, the guy that we've accused, is so bad. All of these people, including the guy who got shot, don't want to testify.
Are so scared of him. Yeah.
And so, that's what it was. But going back to your point, yes, what we later found out much after the trial, actually, is that he received the well, I need to qualify that, because the incident that prompted him to tell us about this statement, which later is found out to not be accurate or anywhere even close to the truth. He had known that information, or the information that prompted him to make that statement to us, back in July. This case went to trial September 12th or the 13th. It's one of those.
Okay.
So he basically had sat on that information for months.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I've been meaning to tell you guys, that's significant to the point that we're getting to about, how he withheld this evidence.
Okay.
But at the time, there's no alarm bells. We're just, okay. It's just like every other person who's been involved in this trial. They're saying strange things. They're saying things that are clearly and factually not accurate. And it's because they don't want to cooperate.
Right.
And we can understand and conceive of reasons why they didn't want to do that. So, Anyway, we proceed through trial, and state's going through its case just as stereotypically as they normally would, step by step, the arresting officer, so on and so forth. I don't remember exactly like how many days had transpired, but it got to the point to where the judge asked, as they normally do, state what he got left, how much longer are we going? And Clay stated to the judge, he goes, I've got one more officer who's going to testify and admit some pictures. And then I've got the lead investigator, and that's it. We'll be resting. I'd say we'll be done by tomorrow morning, like sometime around before lunch. So that's significant to us because he's not called this complaining witness yet. Mm-hmm. And he just indicated to the court that he's not calling this other surviving witness. And to me, especially because of my experience at the DA's, taught by the same people that are leading the administration in that DA's office, it's like, I can't ever conceive of an idea where you have an available witness who's under subpoena, who at least purportedly, at least what you said to the court, you had a writ of attachment for, and you're not calling him, even if he's going to say something crazy for the reasons that I just explained just a few moments ago. So we conclude with that day of trial, and I'm getting ready and I'm preparing for the lead investigator cross, and I'm going through his reports, and it just continues to it's that little bug in your ear, and you're like, something's wrong, something's not right.
Right.
So what we do every morning is we kind of sit in our cars before we go into the courthouse. We get there a little bit early, and we're chit-chatting about, all right, what are we going to do with this witness? What are we going to do about this? And I'm telling Jessica, Miss Ebbs, I was like, this is bugging me. I can't believe that he's not calling this guy. Something's got to be off. Right. So we start digging more into what's the status of it. Why are they not calling him? Is it because they can't find him? Is it because he's not cooperating? What's the deal here? So in Galveston, we have a system, it's Odyssey. It's basically where we look at all the court records and things like that. So we run his name through there, and we find out that he's actually charged with an unrelated separate offense, and he's currently in Galveston County Jail.
What?
Yeah. So,
all right. So the zoo case just turned into like a circus. Like a traveling circus, not even like a permanent circus that can like draw a consistent crowd. It's got to take its show on the road.
Yeah, and not only that, it's one of these things like, okay, well, clearly this is not an issue that he couldn't find the witness because he's in the county jail about 100 yards away from us. So it's not that issue. And that makes me just like, there's a problem. Something's wrong. So yeah. I look at, hold on, before I get to that point, let me back up because something else bizarre happened. Going back to the day prior, we finished. And
I hope you're going to get into what I think you're going to get into, because you didn't tell me that whole story, and I want to know.
Yeah. Okay.
This is crazy. So, everybody watching this, hold on. If this is what I think it is.
It is. So, first of all, I think I forgot to mention, our client has been on bond the entire time. So he's not in custody. He's been out in the free world. And we conclude with the previous day's trial. And then at about 8, 9 o'clock, I might be a little bit off on that time, but we get a phone call from somebody that knows our client, and they say, Rondell's just been arrested.
So, during trial?
In the middle of the trial.
Okay.
And so we're scrambling. There's not much that's publicly available. Galveston doesn't publish the probable cause affidavits or things like that.
Right.
But we start getting little bits more information, and we find out that our client has been arrested by an officer from Texas City who has already testified in our trial.
So a witness is like under the rule, presumably, and like he's
Yep.
sworn and the case is still on. And if you got any admonishment when he left that I've ever seen before, it's that you're still under oath. You can't talk about this. The trial's still going on. The DA will call you when it's over and tell you when you're released. Be on standby. And he goes and arrests the dude who's on trial in that case.
Yeah. And
Is my
the
outrage like misplaced or is that
no,
crazy?
no, it's just to jump forward just a little bit. It's so
Go.
bad that the judge found no PC. We demanded a PC hearing on the new arrest, and he found no PC.
Nice. Nice. What
So
was the charge? Just out of if you want to say, you don't have to. Hopefully, expunctions are
it
happening,
was,
so you don't. Have
well, on the note about the expunction, we have not requested that anything be expunged right now because we were concerned about records of what happened later
oh yeah,
being
they
destroyed.
would all be expunged. They'd all be expunged
Right.
if the court signed that order. So
And so, with our client's permission on the record, we requested, and I'll get to that portion of the story. But these cases are still active. You can still go research them on the county
oh wow,
clerks. Yeah. So what we learn is that there is a new prosecutor, not Clayton, who was doing a ride along, and they were with Texas City, and they were going around looking, just on a routine ride along kind of patrol. And they see a vehicle that is occupied by by our client. He's the passenger, he's not the driver. But it's occupied by a female that was kind of a known associate kind of girlfriend. And
okay.
they stop them from making a wide right turn.
Oh,
And it
nice.
becomes clear through the probable cause affidavit that it seems very, very likely that they knew that our client was in the vehicle. So, they do what they normally do and find some kind of way to suspiciously get into the car and start searching people and things like that nature. Again, this is one of the initial officers who started, not the lead investigator, but one of the officers involved in the investigation who was already testified.
And I didn't know there. We just saying there was a Galveston County ADA and a ride along with him.
Yeah.
So the agency that investigated and arrested him, and then the agency that took the charges that agency, and that they both were in trial. Man,
well, hold on. Maybe I misspoke. This new ADA that was in the car, she was a new hire from a different county from out of town. She had not been with the office very long. It's not even clear that she even knew or had any idea what was going on. She was just doing like ride along. But this officer,
yeah, but that's
clearly
good. Like we talk about appearances when it comes to ethics things. Like
Judge Robinson was offended for many different reasons. He
didn't ask the DA, the elected DA, to come down and like tell me what's going on in your office, kind of thing. Maybe not. I may be jumping ahead. Okay, we're 30 minutes in, and I haven't even let you get to the verdict. I'm sorry.
It's hard. No, you're good. I mean, this is kind of a small part of everything. It's important because it's just kind of going to the whole shit show that this whole thing is. But
right.
So we're dealing with that issue at the exact same time that we're struggling with the idea that this complaining witness is not being called as a witness.
Yeah.
So I have to go deal with the fact that our client is still in custody.
Now in the same jail as the complainant who he shot, allegedly.
Correct. And no longer dressed for trial.
Right.
Because they put him in, I mean, it was just, they put him in a fishing Columbia shirt that was khaki colored, that looked like it had been balled up and stuffed in the corner of a closet for 5 years.
Right.
And then these weird same color slacks.
Oh God.
When he is
basically not an orange jumpsuit, a khaki jumpsuit.
a khaki jumpsuit, but he'd been well dressed the rest of the trial. So something was going to be off, right? The jury's going to
Yeah.
look at this, and so we're figuring out what to deal with that. Um, I find the attorney who's been appointed to the other complaining witness. I find their contact information. I called them. I got permission for us to go interview their client because
Nice.
we're suspicious now.
Yeah.
So I go up to deal with the custody issue, the probable cause issue for uh, our client Rondell, and Jessica goes to the county jail to go interview. So me, I, I'm up there letting Mark know what's going on. And then Jessica texts both of us and she goes, "You are never going to believe what the hell just happened."
Okay.
And so we're all,
This is why I stopped you before. So I haven't heard this now. So let's keep going.
so she says, "Look, I just talked to this guy, and this guy told us that the investigators from the DA's office went to serve a subpoena on him, and he told them, 'You have the wrong guy.'"
Whoa.
And
Not
I mean, it's
some crazy, I was never shot. Whoa.
nothing. And she went on to press him a little bit further. And she goes, "Well, okay, well, how do you know? How do you know this? Do you know our client? Well, how can you be so sure?" And his statement to her was, "I know who your client is. I don't know him like personally, but the important thing is that the person who shot me was dark skinned. Your client is light skinned. And I know that the person who shot me was dark skinned."
Wow.
And she says, "Okay." She's, "Are you sure about that?" And goes, "Yeah, I saw it." And so then the next focus went to, "Who did you tell about this?" And he says, "I told the guy who came to give me the subpoena," which we later find
Okay.
out was the investigator from the DA's office. So
Wow.
now my head's exploding at this point. I'm going back to what he told us in Vordaer, that he was
Mm-hmm.
not shot. We don't want to automatically jump to a conclusion that something's been hidden from us, but we haven't gotten a written disclosure at this point.
Right.
And all of these things kind of culminated into the fact that, well, leading us to even go interview this guy in the first place. So we learn about this. I'm like, we can't tell anybody. We're just going to sit on this information. We get permission from
Man,
his attorney.
that's ballsy.
Oh yeah.
That's
Well,
brave. That's brave.
my thing is that if we had known, if we had told anybody about this on the front end, the state might have had a chance to go correct it, at least for the
Right.
trial strategy. The lack of the disclosure, that's a whole different issue. But I'm trying to preserve what I think is now going to be the key to actually making sure
Winning the
that
trial.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
And that's what you're really there for. All the other things can come
mhm,
out later on, investigations and ethical
yeah.
complaints and stuff. Yeah, you're there to state of Texas versus Mr. Smith.
So that's what we do. I went through. I cross examined the officer who was coming in to introduce some photos, and I cross examined the lead detective, and that went as to be expected with the quality of the investigation. It was not good, um, and so state rests. And I'm sitting there, and I know what we have in our pocket, and I'm like, "This is
And
going to
you
be
know
so
Clay has
awesome."
no idea this is coming.
No, until state rest. We file a motion to recess to talk to our client to see if he wants to testify, do those kind of things. Just kind of a chance to kind of regroup and see how we're going to play the next move. And so we notify Judge Robinson, "Hey, we've got a witness. We're going to be calling a witness. It's not our client. but he's in the county jail. And the judge expressed some frustration for scheduling purposes. He's like, y'all could have let me know this in advance and we could have had him here ready to go. We don't want to waste the jury's time, but now I've got to go get this guy I haven't brought over. Who are you calling? And we say, we're calling Kendrick Gordon, who was the other complaining witness. And so we're calling him. And I mean, you could see the color from Clay's face just drain out of him.
Wow.
And he looks at us and he's like, y'all are going to call him? And I'm like, yep, we're calling him.
Nice.
He goes, okay. Judge says, okay, well, we're going to have to take a brief recess to have him brought over from the county jail. And Clayton asked for short leave to go down to the office. And he's down there for about 15 minutes. And then he comes up.
He had to change his underwear.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a little bit of that. And then he had time to figure out what the hell he was going to put in the written disclosure that he came up and brought to us after he got back up.
Oh, yeah, Judge, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I gotta go put one more nail in my coffin.
Yeah. And so he brings us a written disclosure like is customary to Galveston. And I already know what it's going to say. And he gives this to us and we're like, yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And so we move forward.
Is it just basically what he said at voir dire?
No, it's now additional information.
Okay.
So it's what he said during voir dire that the client said he was never shot. Or I'm sorry, not the client, but the complaining witness said he was never shot. And so I can make sure I got it right. All of that is water under the bridge because he, meaning our client Smith, didn't shoot anybody.
Nice.
So
we
get that.
Man. Yeah. Man. So Clay, okay. All right, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're good. So those are two pieces of information that we know because of what we talked to the individual in jail, but that Clay had never produced for us. So at that point, when he gives us the written disclosure, we're like, all right, we're moving for a mistrial. And we move for a mistrial under, basically, I'm alleging prosecutorial misconduct at this point. So we go into chambers, we have an off-the-record discussion, and Judge Robinson is essentially, he's like, what the hell? What is happening? What is going on? And, we kind of explained to him that that's kind of why we didn't tell you we needed somebody brought over from the jail. We were concerned that he was going to try to fix this or cover it up once he figured out that we knew what he knew.
You're saying this to the judge on the record with the prosecutor you're talking about possibly covering up standing there?
Off the record, yeah.
Oh, off
in
the
chambers.
Record. Okay.
In chambers.
Okay.
The court reporter's back there with us, but we're technically off the record.
Gotcha.
And so Judge Robinson looks at Clay and he says, do you maybe need to have Kayla, who's the Felony Bureau Division Chief, Kayla Allen, or Kevin Petroff or Jack Rody? Kevin Petroff's first assistant, Jack Rody's the elected.
Right.
Do you maybe want to have somebody up here? And he was like, no, I'm good.
What?
Mm-hmm. He's like, no, it's okay. He's if memory serves me correctly, they're aware of this. It's okay. Something to that effect. I can't remember that exactly. And plus it's all off the record. So,
right.
But so he goes, okay, so what are we doing here? And we're like, Judge, we want this dismissed with prejudice. This is what happened. This is what we were told during voir dire. These other two extremely exculpatory pieces of information were never told to us at any point. We discovered it on our own. He looked at
and here's Clayton, proof. Like Clay's surprised that we were going to call Gordon as a witness. Oh, you guys are going to call. Well, I mean, why? Right? I mean, He's going to say he wasn't shot. Like, I mean, if you'd told us that he didn't shoot him, why are you asking me why we're calling him as a witness?
Right.
Like, wow. Okay, sorry, I had to
So
say that. That's what I thought
no, no,
about.
you're good. I mean, so here's where, for me and Jessica, here's where this is intentional from our perspective. Judge looked at him and he goes, "Are you seriously going to let this case go to a jury?" And he said, "Yes, sir."
Wow.
So we call, well, we call Kendra Gordon, the complaining witness. He testifies consistently with what he told Miss Ebbs and what we later find out through a Public Information Act request, what he had told the original investigator. Now, there's something significant about that there. One, well, let me stay chronological. We rest, we close, we get a not guilty verdict in about under 15 minutes.
Nice. That's
very quick.
Trial murder record, not guilty. That's great.
Yeah, huge win. I mean, biggest win of my career. This is these kind of things
This
just
is
don't happen.
huge.
Right?
Yeah, this is career making. This is life changing for Mr. Smith. I mean, how many people were just like, he's a waste. We don't care. I mean, Clayton, who spells Clayton Harrell with ease, he was gonna he knew this guy, the living person who got shot, is like, no, he didn't do it, and he's gonna just go home and go to sleep at night when Mr. Smith goes off to prison.
Yep.
Because if you hadn't had that gut feeling, that's what would have happened. I mean, we know how that trial would have gone out in Galveston County, right? Most places.
Oh no, exactly. I mean, it was definitely going to be a life sentence.
You and Jessica saved a life.
It was. I mean, I get it's so difficult to describe what that whole thing was. I mean, when we had to stand while the clerk read that verdict, I mean, I felt like we had done the best that we could do and we had given him a real logistic shot, but you never know, right? Especially in Galveston.
Well, especially a murder 15-minute verdict. A lot of those 15-minute murder verdicts are guilty, right? So you're like, oh, whoa, 15? Like, maybe, I don't shoot. Are they going to not believe the guy who shot him? I know that feeling.
When they announced that they had a verdict, Rondell looked at both of us and he's like, "Is that a good thing?" And we're like, we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah. But you're also like, fuck, or shoot. Oh, sorry, Mark. Sorry, Mark.
I mean, my sentiments exactly. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. We thought maybe, we thought like this is going to be, if we get a hung jury, this is awesome, right?
Right.
That we'll consider that a victory. We knew that with this testimony, we had seriously given them something to say, all right, we don't like this case. We don't like the accusations against the client. And coupled with how bad the investigation was and how bad the lead investigator testified, it was bad. We got the lead investigator to admit all kinds of things in the deficiencies in his own investigation. And so,
wow.
So,
okay. So we have like a little less than like 9 minutes, I'm thinking, left. And I know like the Texas Rangers get involved. You go in front of a grand jury. I've been holding this back. So you let it go. Tell us how this goes down.
So we file, I subpoenaed the Galveston County has a system that they use in the DA's office where they can input notes and work product. We were told and we learned that there were notes about the encounter with the investigator at the county jail. So I filed a subpoena. They fight me on it. They don't want to turn the records over. To the extent to where I said, fine, we'll just have a motion to quash hearing. You can call this work product all you want, but if it's involved in a criminal offense, then you don't have that privilege anymore.
Yeah.
Correct. So they fought me. When we show, that was on a Friday. When we come back on Monday, they've tried to dismiss the pending aggravated assault. They filed a motion. We approached court. We asked them not to sign it because now we're suspicious. They're hiding something.
Right.
Um,
Because if the
so
judge signs the dismissal, then there's no subpoena left, right? So
and they can destroy the records after a certain time
who's
period.
doing this? Is it Clayton doing this?
This was this was
You can say another prosecutor if
it was
if you
well, he's somebody who's employed as an attorney by the DA's office, but he's not officially in the capacity of a prosecutor. We used to have county legal. The county disbanded that. So this individual who was a prosecutor has assumed the duties that basically he represents the district attorney's office in outside proceedings.
Kind of like in general litigation or something. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. So he does that. There's more about my conversations with him that I know that we're kind of short on time. But there, it's basically, Thomas, you used to be a prosecutor. You know how hard these cases are. You know how complex murders are. This was just an accident. This was just a mistake.
Wow.
I automatically didn't believe that. And now that the investigation has completed for the criminal allegations against Clay, the prosecutor, I even more firmly believe that now this was not a mistake. So
right.
we do, I draft a complaint and file it with the Texas Rangers. There's a ranger that's local, handles all of the Galveston. We were seeking official oppression and abuse of official capacity, and we alleged several disciplinary professional conduct violations and laid it all out in an official complaint and sent that to the Texas Rangers. They responded to us saying that customarily we need to send a copy to the DA's office. The reason that we hadn't initially is because we have lost all trust, all faith in that office and that administration with the way they're handling it.
Wow. Yeah, I don't blame you. If it's just a mistake, like, why are you fighting my subpoena? You know?
Right. And why were we getting the pushback that we were getting? So we forwarded a copy. We CC'd Jack Reddy, Kevin Petroff, and Kayla Allen. They all got the exact same copy of everything that we submitted to the Rangers. And then it basically lay dormant for like months. But the other significant thing, and I think the thing that offended us the most, was that they continued to leave Clayton in that he was the chief of that court. And about a week later, he started a capital murder and tried that to a conviction. And they continued for a year, give or take, a couple of weeks, to let him stay as the chief in that court and prosecute serious cases.
And not just prosecute. The chief prosecutor is also like the mentor and the supervisor of the other prosecutors in that court, right? So they're learning from him. They're running tough questions by him. And if he's more crooked than the people he's prosecuting, more evil than a lot of them probably are, that takes a lot of, God, like, to not just say, whoa, let's just check and see if this guy is serious about that. Like, if he really does know who shot him and who didn't, then let's just check on that. We got 3 minutes left. So you and Jessica knocked this out of the park. You set a record for a not guilty on a murder case. You get all this investigative stuff and you forward it all to the Rangers, and it just sits. He's still chiefing in the court, putting people on death row. What happens next?
So it eventually, months and months later, gets assigned. The DA's office recuses themselves. It gets assigned to a special prosecutor out of Fort Bend, a pro tem. They conduct an entire investigation. They took recorded statements from myself, Miss Ebbs, the investigators, the prosecutors involved in the trial. Clayton provides a written and a recorded statement. And it gets presented to a grand jury. And the grand jury decided to take no action. So the obviously we were disappointed. Um, we believed what we experienced was accurate and what actually had happened. And so we filed the Public Information Act request, and I just this week received the materials related to the investigation.
This is still going
And
on. There's still
it
stuff with
is,
this. Still has legs. Okay.
right.
Do you know? I just
Uh,
was curious. Do you know whether he ever presented cases to that same grand jury that his case got presented to?
That was a specific question that was never definitively answered. We were told that he would have been shielded from it, but that was a concern of ours.
Okay.
That is something that I think that we intend on filing another Public Information Act request with the Galveston DA's office to determine that. But the most alarming thing that I've discovered so far in reviewing the investigation reports is that we finally got those notes that I tried to subpoena.
Okay.
And at no point and in nowhere in those notes from the investigator is the initial statement that Clay gave us in Bordeaux. That never
Really?
happened. In fact, one of the
That I never got shot. No one shot
correct.
me.
Yeah, that was never stated. In fact, one of the investigators in their recorded interviews said that absolutely 100% did not happen. That was never told to Clay. That was never anything that ever got uttered. What
So it originated with
both
Clay.
it originated with Clay, and what both investigators would state and could recall were the two statements that were the most exculpatory, that your guy
Yeah.
didn't shoot anybody.
Wow.
So seems like he was just covering his ass. And there's so much more that I've learned just through his statements.
Well,
You know,
we took up easily the a full hour with this. Would you agree to come back when you get some more information and we can hear the kind of the close of this? Because Mr. Smith still got a pending ag assault. You still got this open investigation, and
yep.
so we want to hear some more about this.
Oh no, I'd love
Um,
to, because the investigation, this first part and what I've talked about tonight is just from everything from our perspective. What we are currently and still learning from this investigation, I think it makes it so much worse and egregious than what he did.
it's a series, Mark. We're going to do a series. Okay. All right. Thomas Overhouse, thank you so much. Jessica Ebbs, thank you so much for Mr. Smith's freedom and for your hard work. And thank y'all for coming on and talking to us about this. We want to have this part continue whenever we can get y'all back and coordinate that, and y'all have more juice for us. So, on
Excellent.
behalf of HCCLA, thank everybody for watching. Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Mark,
Justin.
yes, sir. Thanks for holding it down. I'm getting the finger wave. Bye.
Bye.